This sounds almost too good.
This is like a cheat code. This is like a real secret in the sense of you can bypass all the exercise downfalls and go right into the outcome, which is that circulation, good health outcome.
It's why at Upgrade Labs we have power plates in all of our locations, because we get people to stand on it for 5 or 10 minutes and they're getting a lot of things that they don't get any other way, including microcirculation.
Funny thing is that pro athletes, I think pretty much every pro team has it's a great thing.
For men versus women, what are the differences?
There's a better benefit for females when it comes to the pelvic floor syndrome.
Oh, wow. So you can stop sneeze peeing with a...
Yeah, absolutely. We've heard of men that go on this thing that's like in the elderly age, like 80, 90 years old. And then they'll tell me like days later, hey, I'll be honest with you, I got an erection. I'm like, well, there you go.
It works. It's simple. You just stand there and you're getting more benefits than going for a 10-minute walk. You're listening to The Human Upgrade with Dave Asprey. Dr. Tommy Rhee is a board-certified chiropractor who worked for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And he's one of these guys who understands biohacking at multiple levels. And I want to go deep in the episode today on something that I've taken a lot of hits for recommending, actually, over the past 12 years or so. It's whole body vibration. And there's so much interesting stuff to understand about this. And I'm a little disturbed because I've seen some, we'll say, less than effective and probably harmful devices on the market lately. And I sometimes cringe when I walk past at certain trade shows. I'm like, oh, like I just want to get people off of these things. So this episode is everything you ever wanted to know about whole body vibration. And Tommy, thanks for taking the time to do it.
Dave, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation.
So what happens when someone steps on a power plate?
Wow, there's a lot of things that happen, but, like anything else in our life, we want to get the best benefit from something, either it's from exercise, eating right, or something. Well, whole body vibration and really power play, that really like gets you that benefit that what you're looking for from exercise or a good meal. You want that, they call it biological activation.
What does that really mean? Okay, I mean, you work with professionals, biological activation. I get that from smoking, right?
Yeah, but think about the positive side of that, Think about what you're trying to achieve, like when you go to a doctor and the doctor says, hey, you need to lose weight, go exercise, or you go to the doctor and they say, hey, your A1C is high or you have some type of cardiovascular issue, go exercise. Well, at a certain point in your life, exercise is almost conducive to you, right? Because you're going to have those side effects of like injuries and maybe you don't have that stabilization in your core. So the outcome with exercising is going to be a soreness or an injury, but you want the byproduct, the aftermath, right? You want that good effect of that circulation and decreasing the blood sugar. Well, that's what you're trying to achieve. And that's what the whole thing's about. It's shortening that goal at the end to achieve that. And that's what power plate, whole body vibration does.
We use power plates at Upgrade Labs. And years ago when I was running Bulletproof, we actually launched our own vibration plate. That was many years ago. And people would just make fun of me online. That like, Dave's saying you should stand on these big vibrators. They can't possibly do anything. I'm like, but if you look at all the science behind it, it seems like if you're not going to go walk 10,000 steps a day, which is a made up number anyway, maybe doing a few minutes of whole body vibration is going to give you many of the same benefits, but it saves you time. So what are the specific benefits of using a power plate?
Well, number one, circulation. One of the things that we discovered here, Dr. Louis Nguarno, right? He's a Nobel Prize winner of this compound. Is called nitric oxide. That is what you're trying to achieve. Now, the old way of thinking about exercise, right? No pain, no gain, maximize, do that long duration, go to that max. Well, you're trying to achieve that nitric oxide, that formation, so then you can increase the dilation of your vessels, and then you get better circulation. So that's what this is all about, is really increasing that side effect of exercise, nitric oxide, and its other, biological activation. So when I think about exercise and where you want to go with exercise, it's that component of that circulation. It's that really like that youthful sort of that energetic kind of motion you want from that nitric oxide.
Okay, so Standing on a power plate releases nitric oxide, but where?
All right. So when you look at the vessels, so when we walk, we jog, we move, it's that vessel that you're looking at, artery, vein, and lymphatic system, and you're doing that motion. So as you walk, you're doing that vertical motion, and your vessels are going up and down along that, the epithelium or the lining of your vessels. Well, that's called shearing. So once you start shearing, it engages this activation of increasing nitric oxide, and that's what increases the actual dilation of the vessels. So take that activity of walking, running, or even exercise, and now place it on the power plate or whole body vibration. Now you're maximizing that vibration and a passive mode without, compromising the joints. So the neat thing about that is that you're achieving everything you want from a power plate that you would have to go through a whole exercise motion to get that nitric oxide and the circulation increased.
Okay, so you're getting whole body nitric oxide. How much power plate do you need to get that level of nitric oxide in your tissues?
Well, the great thing about that is that it's 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes of standing on on the power plate for, let's say, in a low-level setting, and just stand there. And when you stand there, you're kind of shifting your weight from the heel to the forefoot, back and forth. And you can feel that vibration as you lean back towards your heel, and it vibrates all the way to your thoracic, to even the brain or the head, right? And you go to your midfoot, and it goes right to the lower extremities. So it's just the activation through the whole body. About 10 minutes.
And you don't need to do squats or planks or anything like that on it?
No, you don't need to do that. You're just engaging that shearing effect on those vessels. Once that shearing effect is noticed, now here comes the nitric oxide production. And that's what you want. That's what you're trying to achieve that itself does a whole cascade of other things, not only for the vasodilation, but we're talking about other things. We're talking about from all the way from stem cells to even like increasing telomeres. You're talking about a whole bunch of things that nitric oxide starts off. Couldn't
I just take a nitric oxide supplement?
Yeah, you could, but there's a whole other steps you have to get involved with that, right? So if you could do like greeny vegetables and go with nitrates and it turns into nitrite in your mouth and it goes into your stomach and turns into nitric oxide. You can do that. But the problem is that you need to constantly go because that particular gas doesn't last long, a couple of seconds, and it depletes out. So if you want that for a long period of time, you're going to have to eat that long period of time. So you want to be on there for 10 minutes to simulate that type of exercise duration.
10 minutes on a power plate is equal to how many minutes of walking?
So now, if you look at the frequency of walking, so when you do like a walk and you do maybe 50 steps per minute, right? But with power plate, you're doing 30 frequency, let's say 30, which is 30 beats per second, right? You're going real fast, right? So that's how much you're maximizing. You're maximizing it that much more compared to just that one walk and then per minute.
You brought up something called shearing force, which is something that a lot of people haven't heard of, even in the world of biohacking. But it seems like shearing force, which comes from that impact, is really important for your fascia, as well as generating nitric oxide. And you just get a lot more shearing per second when you're vibrating versus walking, right?
In the case of nitric oxide, shearing is exactly what it is. So as you're walking, the blood vessels, especially the venous, right? So it's from the lower extremities, from your feet, trying to get back to the heart to oxygenate back up and push back out in the arterial stuff. So you're trying to push it up, but as you're walking or, moving, it goes up and a little bit down. With power plate, you maximize it even faster, right? Because you're doing a frequency of 30 to 50 beats, right? So it's going that much more faster. And when you have that much more activation, it increases nitric oxide even more so. So that's why that is a better tool than actually doing the walk.
So you would say whole body vibration is better than going for a walk?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Me too.
Yeah. Well, think about what walking can do to you, right? Let's say you have, for instance, I'm 57 years old, so I have arthritis in my body. So there's some things I can and can't do. And when you do a walk, you're having limited range of motion. You're not getting a full hip range of motion or your knee range of motion. You're doing little strides. So as you shorten your strides for a long period of time, your joints will decrease in its ability to have that elongation, and now you start feeling that tighter tissue around that joint. Now you're starting to get that arthritic situation worse. With power plate, there's no movement. You just stand there and you're getting that shearing, which is the nitric oxide activation, and that's what you're trying to achieve without that joint getting slowly decreased in its range of motion during a walk.
It feels like there's neurological benefits from walking and from foot flexion and all that. But you could probably get some of those if you just got up on your tippy toes or kind of moved your feet around on the power plate, or is that not even a good idea?
Yeah. Well, activation, anything when you activate a muscle tissue or the joint, absolutely. But then when you compound it with a vibration at that speed, absolutely, it engages those muscle fibers. And then, of course, I think the big thing when you think about nerves, you're looking at two pathways, right? You're looking for the afferent, efferent, right? The information going, or the sensory, and then the actual muscle or the activation or the efferent, right? So the big thing with that is that you want to help that side of the balance, right? When you do balance, you have to know in proprioception where you're at in spatial arrangement. So as far as like thinking about exercise and then how to train your body, you want to tax that nervous system so you can make it difficult to do something. And as you adapt to it, it gets easier and easier. Well, your nervous system is giving you information faster, and more importantly, the muscle neurons are sending it down faster to combat that misimbalance. So it's that training period that you're trying to have during power plate sessions, that when you do a walk or anything else, your nervous system is used to that fast frequency, but now you're back to a walk with a slower frequency and you adapt it so fast. So that's what's great about power plate with balance things.
One of the things I've really appreciated doing is just holding a plank on the power plate. What's the difference between planking on it versus standing on it?
Now, depends. Are you having the plank as a power plate platform on your feet or on your elbows?
Usually on my elbows or just on my palms. I'll just do like a push-up.
Yeah, so that's great. That's almost like doing a handstand. So you're activating the upper extremity side of things in your upper torso and not so much the lower extremity. So, and when you stand on it, you're doing the whole entire body. You're basically doing that triplaning action of the whole entire body to mimic all the way through your body and then back down. Whereas when you do a plank, you're really isolating the lower upper extremity and then kind of, decreasing the lower extremity.
So what I'll do is I'll do like the bottom of a push-up, like a chaturanga kind of a thing. So you're getting like chest opening, and it feels like it's really chest and arms only, but I feel like it's getting more shearing force there than I get if I just stand on it. So I do both, but I'll stand first, and then I'll finish off with a couple minutes of just doing that. Any advice for holding different poses or stretching on it?
I think you have the right idea. If you want that particular muscle to be increased in number one in its activation and then the actual shearing of that type of vessels, absolutely. So if you want to like attack your tricep, well, just get your hands closer as far as like a real close hand grip push up. And then go to like a 30-degree, 45-degree and engage that tricep. And it's about isometric. Don't go into any concentric or eccentric or any action. Just stay there and then, hold it there for a minute too, because you want the isometric hold on it, and then the shearing will maximize, because you don't want to ride along with the actual vibration as you're doing your action. You want to be still and let the plate do the movement for you.
Okay, got it. That's helpful. Can you talk for a minute about what vibration does for microcirculation and why we care?
When you hear about microcirculation, you're looking at the smallest vessels, like to your eyes, to distal end, to your feet, the toes, and even around your heart. So when you think about those small vessels, you're thinking about those antagonizing things that it moves into, like diabetes, the blood sugar's too thick, something's getting too sticky in the platelet, right? So because of those factors, the viscosity is getting too thick, and you can't get inside or past that point of the small little vessels. So with power plate, again, going back to nitric oxide, you have to vasodilate. You have to open up those channels to allow that blood flow to go through those little teeny vessels, so it oxygenates that tissue on the other end.
What about the lymphatic system? It feels like when I'm doing power plate, I feel like there's a lymphatic effect, there's a circulatory effect, there's a muscle effect, there's a bone effect, probably something in joints. Talk to me about lymphatic drainage, and does power plate work as well as walking? Because that's one of the reasons we go for walks.
Yep, great one. So that's the biggest thing. You want to understand about that metabolic waste that you get from either something from a workout, trauma, or some type of like systemic illness you may have, that the lower extremity is basically holding this high type of free radical bunch of junk down there. You have to get it out. So there's a process where you can get it through the venous system, but more importantly, it goes through the lymphatic system. It's that slow kind of moving type of, like a channel that goes from the distal and it gets all the way into the big vein in our system here. So the problem with that is that if you don't move, it's hard to move that tissue, right? You almost have to stand upside down to have the gravity pull it down. So as we stand, we don't really stand upside down. So we need something. Again, nitric oxide. You have to get that thing dilated, open up the vessel so it's allowed. Then when you stand on a plate, you're doing these micro contractions. So it's like a little pump. You're trying to pump everything up from your distal end of your feet back up into the core of your body where you can dump it out. You know, we all know that free radicals, we have anything that has that metabolic waste, it's bad for us. You know, and then you get that stuff called interstitial fluiditis and all that stuff. You start getting that leakage in your lower extremity. You've got to get it out. Well, that has to go through that channel lymphatic system. So again, power plate increases that dilation and it contracts those little muscles that help pump that vessels and all that junk, that metabolic waste out of those extremities.
Are there studies of lymphatic drainage and whole body vibration?
Oh, absolutely. There's so much studies out there. Whole body vibration has been around a long time. It is here, believe it or not, you know, I totally understand what you're saying about like people kind of like, you know, look down on this whole type of, because it's too easy. It's too simple. It doesn't make sense, right? You know, exercise in itself is about no pain, no gain. If you're not sweating, you're not doing it. You know, it's that whole, like, you have to go more than 45. You can do everything in 10 minutes. If you really want the secret, you know, 10 minutes. 10 minutes in its proper formation, understanding which equipment, what technique, what supplement, and then that's all it takes. Knowing that secret, and that's what you want. You don't want to go in that long duration because then, sure, you may get that benefit, but what's the next thing happens? Joint, cartilage get destroyed. You know, you get damaged. You get that thing called DOMS. And then if you overtrain, you can start tearing muscles. And we all know about tearing those muscles, Achilles tendonitis and all that stuff. So that repetitive injury, because you don't give yourself that ability to rest. And as we age, we need more time to rest. With power play, you can bypass all that. You can go right into the outcome, which is that good results from an exercise, except for don't deal with all that side effect from exercise.
So I get it for people, you know, over 45, 50, you're starting to get lots of injuries. But if you're 25 and you're in good shape and you're probably going to go for a walk or even a run because you haven't figured out the running is not that great of a sport. But are you going to get additional benefits from doing whole body vibration, or is it you don't need to do it if you're going to go do a full workout?
All right. So when you're young, especially if you are pushing yourself to like do that one max rep or something that really like, you know, maximizing your output, you want to think about, all right, I've got to warm up. I've got to increase everything I have, which is, of course, the vessels. And then you got to warm the tissue up. But you don't want to deplete your energy in that muscle that you want to do that one max rep. So again, a cheat code. Open your vessels up. Get on power plate. That's your pre warm up. You want to do that. Get everything warmed up and then start going into that one max. And then again, with running, same thing. You know, a lot of runners, if you look at competitive runners, they run around around the track a couple of times and then they warm up that way. And then it goes, I'm ready to go. Well, guess what? Sometimes when you do too much of a warm up, you can really waste yourself before the competition. So when I was over there at the Olympic trials, they would have two tracks. They would have one track, which is the competition track, and there's a other side, which is the warm-up track. And the warm-up track, you'll see everybody, you know, warming up, doing their event, doing their simulation, and trying to, like, you know, get their body temperature up, get everything going. What you typically see on these guys that are kind of new in this world, they will over warm up and then they just waste all their energy. So by the time competition comes around, which is like in a matter of like 40 minutes to an hour, they're wasted. They can't perform to their best. So it's about like keeping your energy, but warming up your tissue. That's what power plate does. So when you think about you guys that are younger that want to maximize some type of 1 mile run or you want to recover easier, power plate is a secret weapon. You can bypass all that wasted energy before you run to get that, you know, that one max rep or that PR you're trying to do.
That's interesting. So you recommend using power plate as a warm-up instead of a normal warm-up because you have more energy left for your max lift or for your event.
Absolutely. That's the secret. There's so much in this vibration and power plate that people don't know. If they really like grab this thing and used it correctly and not use it for just, I guess, a lot of people think that power plate is something to build large muscles or do something to bypass that You know, that the aggressive workout. Well, it has its market over there. But if you really understand about using this in a pre to a post world in your event or your workout, that is where the secret's at.
What are some of the problems with the different forms of vibration? You've got these cheaper machines that rock back and forth from one leg to the other, and you got like the power plate that goes more up and down. What are the pros and cons? Okay,
well, here's the pros and cons. What you explained are like in that two-dimensional world, you know, it just only has that vertical kind of movement, maybe a little horizontal. But we live in a three-dimensional world, right? We have that side that we have to mimic what we're trying to do in the real world. So in my practice, I look at things in a sense of a controlled environment. So I have a patient that may have like a sprained ankle, and I want to get him off that sprained ankle acute and get him to chronic and then get him to rehab and exercise. Well, the only way to start that process is, decrease inflammatory world. Then you start, working on the tissue. And once they're able to, be weight bearing, then they are going to stand on static. Then you get them on something that mimics the world. That's power plate. It has a three-dimensional stressor, right? It's got this vertical, horizontal, and the side to side. So with that, it mimics actively real world. And so that's what we try to do in our clinic, is that have real world situations to kind of, sample. And then once they command that and they dominate that, then when they go out there and they're walking on that bad ankle, it's very simple for them. So that's why I love power plate. It has that triplanar activation of that movement.
That's something that's really important to understand about whole body vibration, is you got to go up and down, side to side, and front to back. But I've seen so many people on these cheaper machines that rock back and forth from one foot to the other. It seems like that's just a recipe for screwing up your low back. I've seen it over and over, and just don't use those, would be my advice, because that doesn't seem to support a healthy spine. Have you seen problems from people using just the wrong type of vibration?
Yeah. The great thing about power plate, the travel distance of power plate isn't extreme. It doesn't go in like 5 inches or anything. It's a very small movement, right? Just enough to engage those intrinsic muscles and those deep postural muscles. But when you see those large movements and those teeter-totter, exactly what you said. You're doing a quick stress on one side of the body to the other side of the body, and your spine has to catch up quick. And if it's not able to catch up quick, then you're starting to do that little bit of wedging of the disc, and then you'll start impinging on nerves. And it doesn't give you the proper core stabilization that you really are trying to achieve, because it's moving in its left-right vertical sense without it balancing correctly.
When people are using this triplanar motion that you've got built into the power plate, and by the way, guys, you can tell I'm kind of a fan of power plate after more than 10 years of manufacturing and working in the space and using a lot of different types of equipment. Now, this is the one that I deployed at Upgrade Lab, so that's why we're talking about it so much, just because not all vibration's the same. But I want to know, what happens to proprioception? Like, am I getting better at knowing where my body is in space, or do I need to do some other kind of cross-body exercise for that?
No, that's great. So going back to proprioception. So we talked about that sensory neuron, right? We want to know where we're at in space, right? So when you have a taxation of those triplanar actions, from those movements, your body has to compete against that so you don't fall off the platform off of that whole body vibration power plate. So when you're moving, you have that motion that the power plate is moving to your left. Well, you have to quickly send information to your body to push you back to your right. Well, by the time you get that information, you might go forward, backwards, side, up, down. You have to compete. So the information that's coming to you is coming fast. That means you have to send information, the muscle information, faster down to your feet to catch that. So you're constantly giving yourself a good ability to stay in a stationary position. So when you come to proprioception, you're really training it to get involved with the high velocity of the frequencies. Once you're stationary at that high frequency, then stand on the ground, and then you're bouncing, especially one-legged. Oh, it's so much better. So if you have those kind of balancing issues or something that you can't really feel the ground, it increases that sensory neurons where you can sense things. So there are some people that have a difficulty walking at nighttime because they can't feel the ground. Power play increases that sensory neuron and say, hey, I can feel the ground now. I can see where I'm at. I can see if the level is off, up, down, based on the information I'm getting real fast. And then I can combat that with the information going down to my foot to bounce me back.
So it actually improves balance to just stand on it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of cool. Do pro athletes really use the power plate for warming up and for these kind of drills? It feels like they almost wouldn't.
Yeah. I mean, funny thing is that pro athletes, I think pretty much every pro team has the power plate. It's a great thing. They all use it for warm up. I think the big thing with when you talk about when I was with the Bucks, I think the big thing with warm up is to me, this is how I feel. Warming up is just like those track athletes. You warm up too much, you're going to waste your energy. You got a big game coming up. So, when I was with the teams and I see guys warming up, I see a quarter of a team, they don't really warm up like you think they go warm up on the field and do all those, like A skip, B skips and all that stuff as you see it in track athletes do. What they do, they stay in the locker room and then they'll do some type of stretching and they'll do like a little pass stuff. But if it's a home game, absolutely they do power play because they don't want to waste their energy. You want to warm your tissues up without wasting your energy. So these athletes, they know. But this is what I think happens. These athletes, they want to get out in the stadium and they want to get their sensories kind of adjusted to the stadium, see their family warm up and see the other team warm up and say hi to their friends. So I think it's one of those collective things that go out on the field before the game starts and say hi to everybody and get your mind right and then do that stuff. But you can really do the warm up if you have the power plate in the locker room.
Okay, that's pretty cool. And I still laugh at all the gym bros are like, oh, this stuff doesn't work. I'm like, well, it seems to work for professional athletes all the time. And I've noticed profound differences, especially if I just sit. Sometimes I'll do 6 episodes in a day, or I had 14-hour days pretty commonly on this trip I just got back from. So you just don't get that much standing time or walking time, even though I'd like to. And when I have access to a power plate, it feels like that kind of undoes the damage from sitting. Is that actually happening?
There was big studies out there with, that you were telling me you flew from, I believe it was Dubai, right? You ever heard of that thing called first class leg syndrome, where you get that poor circulation, your legs swell up when you sit long periods in a flight? Well, that's because you're stationary. You don't have those little contraction in your muscles and the circulation gets kind of decreased and you get that collection of fluid down your lower extremity. Power plate can combat that. If you can get off that plane, get on a power plate, increase the circulation, boom, get that out there. Because the side effect of that, you'll get that thing called DVT. You don't want that deep vein thrombosis where it kind of occludes that venous flow. So you want to get that fluid back and forth. So if power plate was really awesome, they should have that on the airplane. Just have anybody stand that thing and get that thing going so they can get that circulation moving.
That would be the most epic flight ever. What I do is I wear compression pants, like full-on compression tights. Nick Foles convinced me to wear compression tights instead of just compression socks. And then the second I came home, I stood on my power plate just to get all the microcirculation moving again. And it seems to work pretty well because I feel completely normal today, even though that was, I think, 14 hours of flying.
Going back to what you're saying about those gym bros and then, how they talk about power play, I hear it all the time. I think that the reason why it's a negative connotation is that they just don't know. They really don't know the signs or the feeling. And, here's a great thing about power plate that they don't know. That sensation, that little buzzing feeling you have there in your legs when you stand on for that period of time, well, that's a good sign. It's a biofeedback. It says nitric oxide is releasing and you're vasodilating. That right there tells you that something is working. And when you talk to runners, when they run hard and they go into their period of time, 2-3 miles and they stop, it's the same sensation. So what's the difference? Except for one's with effort, one's just standing. And that's what the most important thing is, that power plate gives you that feeling that, these guys are running for 2-3 miles out there.
Is there a point to standing on a power plate holding a couple kettlebells?
Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, I think that's more for the advanced side of things. So, once you get more advanced and you're able to do power plate and hold it for 10 minutes and then, do a little balancing here, you feeling really confident? Absolutely. You can even do that. It's almost like they call them farmer's walk, right? Farmer's walk is great for your posture, but now use it with power plate and it helps your posture because you have to stand straighter.
So we just invented the farmer's vibe. Is that?
Yeah, there you go. That's awesome.
I'll do that sometimes. Or sometimes there's straps attached to my power plate. So I'll just stand, I'll pull on the straps, which kind of replicates that, but I don't have to go find kettlebells to do it. Yep. Similar effect?
Yep. More load. So when you have something very heavy, you want to get up to that weight, right? So if the straps are heavy enough, it should feel like, I like to, when I do that type of scenario of the farmer's walk, I want to get a little heavy, right? 60 pounds, 70 pounds, because if you have poor posture, it will show up on your upper extremities. So you have to get upright, stand tall, chest out, shoulders back, and then have that linear pressure right through the actual, the midline or that, what they call the plumb line. And then that keeps your posture right. And then all your posture muscles will work together with that. So that's why we want to load as much as possible. But once you get that power plate and that weight on there and you stand up, if you feel different type of sensation, like I feel like I'm too far forward or too far backwards, well, there's your imbalance, and then you have to work on that posture to get it corrected.
So you would do the farmer vibe for posture. Now, sometimes I'll also do like a one-legged forward fold. You kick one leg back and you're sort of bending over. So it feels like it's really concentrating just in one leg, and I'm getting a lot of core strength. Is that a good idea or a bad idea?
Yeah. You know what? Again, if you're an advanced person like yourself, that's, you want to get dynamic. Absolutely. Just get to that range, open it up, and feel that tissue that you would feel. I always do this one step where you do this on the ground floor and just mimic that exercise. Then go on the power plate. If you feel it maximize that activation of the muscles, the nerves, then you say, all right, I'm on it. Just mimic that same kind of feeling as if you're doing the static. But now when you go on the power plate, copy that and maximize that.
All right. Power plates for men versus women, what are the differences?
Not much. I think the only difference in my eyes is there's a better benefit for females when it comes to the pelvic floor syndrome. That's the big thing. There's studies out there that talks about like there's these E-stem devices or some type of like modality that sends electricity through your body and, strengthens the muscles down there in the pelvic area. Well, if you do power plate, think about what you're trying to do. You're trying to activate those muscles. Well, then activate that, learn how to do your Kegels, and then get on power plate. It will actually maximize that activity, so it helps you get that pelvic floor raised up higher.
Oh, wow. So you can stop sneeze peeing with a power plate?
Yeah, absolutely. You just have to understand, take it into the first step, which is the standing on it. And then once you command that, then go into hold it, Kegel, squeeze tight, and go on power plate. And then you'll shift your body left and right. Yeah.
That's a very affordable way, because some of the therapies for that are quite expensive. So this is a low-cost way. All right, I'm going to add do Kegels to my posters at Upgrade Labs in front of it, because it's probably good for men too, right? Because we also have pelvic floors that are kind of important.
Yep, men. And then don't forget the men's side of it. You're looking at the other thing that we deal with, it's just ED, And then with ED, the secret is nitric oxide again. It's about increasing circulation. So we've heard of men that go on this thing that's like in the elderly age, like 80, 90 years old, and they go on power plate for the balancing side of it. And then they'll tell me like days later, hey, I'll be honest with you, I got an erection. I'm like, well, there you go. It does increase the circulation. So, don't tell your wife not to be angry with me, but there you go, right?
You probably want to tell your wife to also get on the power plate, because nitric oxide is good for all of us, right?
All of us, absolutely.
That makes so much sense. What about mood? Do people experience a difference in just how they feel when they get off a power plate?
Oh yeah, it's like that. You're trying to get that runner's high without the running. It's the same thing. Your nitric oxide, opening up dopamine, all that stuff. It's the same thing. You and I know what it feels like to get off the power plate. That tingling sensation. Especially when I'm stressed out in the daytime, I jump on power plate and I just zone out. Number one, it's giving me that chance of like staying consistent, and then it kind of shakes you around in the sense that I can't hear nobody. My hearing goes off, so I don't hear people ask me questions. But when I come off of that thing, it's like I'm a new person. It's like I feel that stress decreased. It's that parasympathetic activation. You get that calming sensation. Like, okay, now I can clearly think and answer questions instead of like in that stressful answering mode, which is always going to be wrong answers.
If this sounds almost too good to be true, it is, because I actually felt kind of silly talking about this at the beginning of the biohacking movement because there was so much pushback from people who just didn't understand the science. But there's a ton of science here. So if this has your attention, if you listen to the show, you're going to get a deal. So powerplate.com/Dave, you get 20% off and a massage gun made by PowerPlate as well. So that's a good saving. And these are not the cheapest. You can go to Amazon and you can buy a $300 teeter-totter style whole body vibration thing, and it will trash your back. Like your sciatic nerves are going to hurt, your low back is going to hurt. I have done that, and I've tested probably 10 different devices because we deployed these at all of our Upgrade Labs locations, and there's 9 open right now, another 20-something being built. The reason I put them in there is because, well, it works, and because of the triplanar design. So just to save you guys from a lot of searching and maybe a certain amount of pain that I went through, there's a reason that I vet equipment the way that I do. And I think the PowerPlate works really, really well. And so you've talked a little bit about kind of what you do, but what's your daily PowerPlate routine? Do you wake up? Do you do it? Do you do it before bed? Like, how do you spread it out?
My daily routine is the first thing I get into the office after I turn things on, PowerPlate. PowerPlate is my cup of joe. I have to have that in my morning routine. It really wakes you up and it vasodilates and it activates a lot of things, especially in my brain. It moves that, CSF in my brain, and it kind of helps me function and makes it clearer. So lights get brighter. So when I do my activity, it's, that's PowerPlates in the morning. But throughout the day, when I'm stressed out, I'll jump on PowerPlate. It just helps me kind of cope with some of these difficulties. And then you can do all you can to kind of decrease the stressors, but getting on PowerPlate, you don't have to do any type of conscious thought. You just stand on a thing and it's going to do its job.
One of the really important variables for whole body vibration is how many vibrations per second. So how do I know what the right number is?
That's a good question. It starts in the low frequencies, right? You want to go as low as you can and then work your way up to a higher frequency. So if you're having a difficulty in, let's say, balancing, start low, and then till you command it. And then, when you feel that 2 legs are good and you're not using your hands, then, try one leg balance. And then if that's your case, and then as you command that for, let's say, a 1 minute period, and you can do that on each leg, then start increasing your hertz, your speed, and then go up to a maximum of 50. When you get to that point, now you're getting pretty good. Now you're actually walking around with probably no balance issues. And then when you come to other things, if you just want easy, like circulation, put a low setting, 10 minutes, just stand there, just feel it out. That's all you got to do. It's not that complex. And then when it comes to other things, if you want to do anything that helps, especially if you want to increase circulation, or you have that pitting edema, you want to get that metabolic waste out of your legs, low frequency, just low frequency. Start off that way in 10 minutes.
It really is that simple, which is why this is one of those biohacks that it probably people just don't respect because they don't know about it. Compare using a PowerPlate to getting on a mini trampoline. What are the differences?
All right, so mini trampoline, the problem with that is that it's the frequency. You're looking at the hertz, right? So PowerPlate has 30 to 50, right? The frequency there. With a trampoline, you're doing maybe 5 to 3 to 2. It's small in its frequency allowance. So you want the higher velocity. You want the higher frequency. Number one. Number two, the safety issue. You're doing the concentric eccentric. You're coming up, and when you get off the ground, you're doing an open chain. You come back down. Well, you're prone to injuries. You can land on your ankle and roll your ankle if you're not properly tuned up with your muscles. So that's another thing. So trampoline is for advanced people that want to get rid of their boredom. Start with PowerPlate, go to trampoline. Like you said, PowerPlate is so simple, but the diversity of the plate is tremendous, from exercise to health. And the way I look at it is the health benefits. It's huge on that. And we have those type of people that are not able to work out, or they're scared to go to a gym, or they're just hesitant of doing something. Well, PowerPlate gets you that first stepping stone and go into it. But that stepping stone moves you into the advanced stepping stones and just keeps on going. It's like a necessity you need in your life.
It feels like with the Rebounder, you might have a slight advantage for some lymphatics because you're going down pretty far on a Rebounder. but you're doing maybe one jump every 2 seconds. So you compare that to 50 of them. It's a completely different frequency. So I've certainly done both, but you feel very different on a power plate. But I would say, look, if you can't afford a power plate, doing a rebounder is better than going for a walk. But you might want to get a power plate when it's right for you, just because it's just way more time efficient. You need to spend a lot more time jumping to get a similar amount of shearing force in the body.
Yeah. Remember, power plate, the best thing about power plate is the effort. There's no effort to stand there. And that's the benefit of this whole thing. And that's why I always look at this thing, this is the secret. This is like, you're talking about exercise is not going to be around after people understand what power plate really is used for. I mean, everybody knows that exercise is good for you. You know, hormones, muscle, lymphatic system, you know, vessel flow, circulate, all that stuff's good. Well, power plate does that. You know, it's 10 minutes and then you'll get the same outcome.
I don't know that it's better than all forms of exercise, but I would say it's foundational, and it's way more time efficient than anything else, because it's going to take you a long time to take the number of steps to equal to the number of impacts that you had when you were standing on it. So it works. I've used it for a decade, so I'm into it, you could say. What about if someone's like pretty ill? They've got a bunch of fluid in their legs, you know, liver cirrhosis or something like that. Can they like sit in a chair and put their feet on the plate to get started, or like what's the minimum you could do?
I think that's a big starting point right there. You know, you have to, So I would start off exactly like what you said. No, have a seat, put your feet up there, and then start with that process. Now, if they can stand on it, start them like call it like you know how you have those, what's that, the HIIT, right? You know, high intensity interval training, right? Well, call it light, right? Call it like low intensity interval training. If you have someone like that and they can stand, well, just do 1 minute at a time. 1 minute, stop it. 1 minute, stop. You know, you want to get the full benefit, the whole body. So, you know, absolutely, you can start them slow, you know, stand, you know, sit and put their feet on that thing, but you eventually want to get standing on that thing.
You just invented another word, live training, low intensity vibration. There you go. Just full of things like that today. So this is kind of funny. It's a single piece of tech. You put your kids on it because it's safe. It works for the elderly because you're getting a signal into the body, even if you're not fully standing on it, although it's nice to be able to stand on it. It works for professional athletes. And so I don't know anything else that's this time efficient with that level of safety profile that does this. And I think the effects on fascia, we don't fully understand everything about fascia, but gliding fascial planes past each other seems to have all kinds of benefits. And this does that as well. So this is one of those technologies where I thought it'd be helpful to have you come on as a professional sports trainer, chiropractor who's worked with a ton of pro athletes and done a ton of rehab, just to share what it's like to use it, because it's a thing. And I feel like in the world of biohacking, we don't talk about it enough because it seems so simple. But having manufactured, or at least tried to manufacture something as good as the power plate, it was exceptionally hard to get the 3 planes. We never quite nailed that when I was doing that old stuff, which is why I swapped out to power plate at Upgrade Labs, because it works. So I don't know that there's much else to share about it other than it is one of the most time efficient ways to do this. And if you're like me and you have times when you're on camera or you're just in meetings all the time, this is 1 minute on it between meetings completely seems to erase the effects of sitting. And yes, going for a walk is still good, but if I could do one of the other, walking for a minute or being on a power plate for 1 minute, hands down, I'm going to do the power plate. I might do a couple squats. I might bend over. I might, do a little bit of advanced movement or something just to shake my body up. But it's what I do, and certainly it's what you do. And I think it's what a lot of people who have their own office probably had to do. You work from home. It's a good plan. So thanks, Tommy, for coming on and just sharing your experience, because I just don't know anything else this big.
Yeah, I like I said, I love this thing. This thing is a game changer when I have difficult patients that I need to move into an advanced scenario, especially when I try to mimic the real world scenario in my office. Power plate does that for me. It puts that triplanar, that 3-dimensional, and I load them up and I increase that stressor in those directions.
Beautiful. Tommy, thanks for coming onto the show and just sharing real world useful info about something that we all should have access to. And guys, it's powerplate.com/Dave, and they give you 20% off and a massage gun. Or come into an Upgrade Labs and you can try that out as part of your membership. Because this is one of those things, it works. It's simple. You just stand there and you're getting more benefits than going for a 10-minute walk, except maybe the sunshine, but you could put it outside. So there's always that. Thanks again, man.
See you next time on the Human Upgrade Podcast.